there. I thought I'd do a bit of a fun, different take on a founder rant, and you will probably get to see what I'm ranty about as we go. So, often people ask for behind the scenes, and I wonder, are you really prepared for the degree of behind the scenes that people can give you? So, often I would imagine in the podcasting world that involves people telling you how they set up their equipment, like look at my fancy mic and look at my headphones and look at all of the rest. So mine's a little different, yo. So if you really want it behind the scenes, come with me. This is probably, I'm not going to lie to you. This is truly behind the scenes. There's a level of get ready with me in this, and if that's not your jam, step away now or hold your peace forever. So come with me. What happens first when I decide today's episode is about the fact that I want to um, record a couple of preambles for episodes that we already have, which are relevant, and we want to repurpose them. So, in order to do that, I do need to record a couple of preambles. So, to do that, what would I do? This is what I look like now. And I would prefer not to look like this or sound like this or any of that in the actual podcast. So what do? Usually if I'm deciding to do any kind of major, oh, by the way, there's my letter. If I'm deciding to do any major recordings at this time of day, there has got to be alcohol involved. So my first step is I'm going down 1,000 stairs because I live in a townhouse. And I'm going to go get some wine because I need some, you know, fill some wine in a glass. What am I drinking, folks? Sangiovese. It's a kind of Italian wine. When I visited that general area, they told me it was the not quite there yet version of the Chianti, which is a fancier wine. And so here's the Sangiovese because that's what's in the LCBO, which is the Canadian Ontario version of the booze distributor. And it's a reasonable price point. So that's what I have. So cheers. First we drink, then say hello to my bathroom. Then I need to come in here and actually get dressed. So what happens there? When I'm balancing you on some product. So it usually involves me putting on some lipstick because I have glasses and glasses tends to hide a multitude of sins. So we need to fix this. So come with me. This is pretty basic, y'all. I have no lips to speak of, so I spent a lot of time on this. Shout out to lip liner. Makes a big difference. I told you this is going to look very little like your average bro podcasting episode. Drop me a comment if you've sort of previously seen anything similar. I'm trying to decide my lipstick shade here. So what are we thinking? This is a orangey brown, but I think I'm feeling a red today. That's like an orangey orange, I guess. Wait. All right, here's a red. It's a very red. It's a, which one is this? I have no idea. I feel like it's two-faced. What do we think? All right, you see what I did there? Minimum work, maximum impact. I'm all about that. I feel all unbalanced. You see there? So see how much time I spent on this shit? Like, talk about feminism, y'all. This is a fucking joke. And it's not even like anyone's asking me to do this. I am just doing this because that's how damaged I am. All right, I feel like that could work. Now we tackle the next big hurdle, which is hair. And luckily for us, I did actually clean and wash my hair earlier today. Here's my kids' cat comb. We're gonna borrow that. Somebody said that you know how old you are based on where you part your hair. So we're gonna go with the center part because that's what the kids think is cool. Let's go in with that. Normally I would straighten my hair, but recently I've worked myself out of that patriarchy. So let's put the cat comb back in case the kid wants it. Where's that wine? Cheers again. All right. So I have recently found that I look relatively like decent if I go in with like a one-sider. You see how that like minimizes the mess? So that's what we're gonna do. All right, great. Okay, I think we could work with that for a recording. That's not too bad, is it? All right, let's go. We're gonna go upstairs, and now you see, wait, nope, we forgot the wine. That's not gonna work. All right, great. So we're gonna go upstairs to the 4th floor, which is where my office is. L'Oreal. So that's the office. This is kind of where I sit. I'm a couch worker. I like to work off of my couch. And this over here is the actual formal. Oh, look at that green screen effect. What's green over there? I have no idea. So that's my actual desk. But this spot, for those who know what I record from, this spot is a much more visually attractive spot. So that's where I set up. So for right now, I'm gonna put you folks down over here and my wine down over there so that I can show you how I set up. All right. Okay. Do we have it? Okay. This is my recording spot. It's a foldable table, which I put down over there, like so. I have a chair that I sort of move there, like so. I don't actually have like desk risers and such. So we're gonna have to work with shoe boxes. Let's go. So here's the first of the shoe boxes. I'm gonna put it over here. I don't know where to put you so that you can see that, but there we go. And since that height is not quite enough, here's another shoe box that goes on top. And then we're gonna sort of set this atop like so. And then you're gonna wait for me for a second while I go get some wine. I often write notes first before I record, so I've done so today, and I'm gonna get that. Alrighty, here I am. So let's get this sort of visually focused. Do we like that? What do we think? I've never quite figured out how to look at the camera while I talk, especially when I'm A, narcissistic, and B, it flips. So anytime I think I'm looking at the camera, I'm probably looking a little weird. All right, so we're gonna go in with this sort of angle. I think we've left out most of the crap in my background. All right, so let's do this. I'm gonna need some wine. Cheers again. So today I'm supposed to be recording at least one, if not a few preambles. So like I said, I make some notes often in order to decide what it is that we are communicating. So in this case, we're talking about podcasting, and I'm supposed to be recording two preambles. The first of them is about dismissing the myths of podcasting. And then the second is about ROI. So, but that's what we're going to do, okay? I will set this down here. You know, here's a little side benefit. I don't know if you can see this on this particular version, but sometimes when I hold this thing up, it helps with the light on my face. I don't actually have any ring lights, as you can see. All the bros will tell you how they have fantastic equipment. They have these mics and these headphones, and I have all of those things. I do, I promise. Like I have this. It's a very nice mic. The purse that the mic comes in is actually even nicer than, wait. The purse that the mic comes in is actually even nicer than the mic. But I don't use it. I figure I stopped using it in 2020 when the pandemic broke out and I started to record more outdoors, and it didn't seem to matter. And the sound engineers that I worked with over the while, big shout out to Jeremy. He's like awesome. And we found him after a lot of trouble. But in the past, the sound engineers that we worked with said that you can do everything you can to make your sound perfect. But if the guest joins you with bad sound, there's not a lot you can do, right? So any kind of sound that you tend to put out is probably better than someone joining you from a car. And we've had that happen a few times. So and try not to stress. But that said, just to make sure, this is the point where I will connect to my AirPods and just make sure that transition is relatively simple, because there's no real way for me to hear that. It does say that my computer is connected to my earbuds, so great, let's go with that. Okay, let's start with these two. Notice that as I record, I will make some notes for Jeremy in the recording format, because, you know, he's used to hearing my voice in his head a lot. So I guess it's just easier to give him clearer directions. So I will put my iPad with my notes sort of in front of me here, so I can roughly see it, but I don't want to like massively look down either. So as long as it's a comfortable angle, if you have a larger table, I'm pretty sure now this applies. And people who work from proper offices and not like a city home with limited space and 1,000 people working and schooling in the same area, you could probably do a lot better than this. But we live in the city of Toronto in a townhouse. There's a different person who works on each floor. My husband works on the main floor. My kids' schools on the bedroom floor, and I work on the fourth floor. And there we go. All right. So we're going to do this. All right. So for this, by the way, I put a founder's rant on as my brand look and feel for this thing. But I feel like if we do need to use any video from the next couple, I probably won't use that background. So I'm going to hide that. Okay. You see what I did there? So now the video is just going to be me talking so that Jeremy has a little bit more room to be able to put in effects if he so chooses. Although this is a pretty busy background and there's probably not going to be a lot of room here. So let's go. This is going to be episode 161, Jeremy. So hello and welcome back to the 4am report. We're continuing with our series about business casing a podcast, especially if you're trying to convince a boss or a stakeholder about the value of podcasting, or if podcasting is on your mandate and you're trying to best figure out the ways in which to plan this. So today's detail we've covered, if you haven't heard them, you should probably go back and listen to episode 158 and 159, in which we broke down, number one, how it is that your podcast can handle like the ability to up level your content marketing and put a lot more on your editorial calendar. And then in the next episode, we talked about the consolidation of podcasts, where people have learned, I think, quite efficiently how to break things down, but join them together and consolidate and create like masterclass episodes, webinar episodes, roundup emails, and even if you're so lucky, sort of the holy grail of it all, which is like books, right? So those were the two. If you haven't heard them, you should probably listen to them now. But if you have heard them, then move on through to the next one, which is how to dismiss the myths that surround podcasting. At any given time, there's a lot going on. Like for the last year or so, we've been doing a live show every week where we cover the news of the week. And every week there's been news about podcasting. So it's changing at warp speed. That said, some of the myths that you can dispel are that this is not an over-index situation. There aren't too many podcast folks. There are far from oversaturation issues like you might read in the headlines. Like when you compare podcasts to blogs and vlogs, you're at least 10, if not 100 times lower in terms of what the market sees, right? So YouTube's continuing, even though YouTube has like 50 million videos and there's really only 2 million podcasts. So here's a universal truth that you need to know. Like, I mean, in this episode, we're going to break some of them down. Listen to this sort of curation of clips that I've put together for you. There are a few key things to consider. Number one, you've got a niche. Number two, any way in which you can sort of like cut clutter is a good idea. And number three is that if you don't fully utilize the recording that you have on hand, you've probably failed the task. So listen to this and see, these are the universal truths of podcasting, which regardless of any myths that you hear about oversaturation of the market, as long as you apply these, your podcast is already always going to work. Wait, that's a bit crappy. Let me just rephrase that sentence. I wish I'd brought some water. All right. So those are the things, if you focus on them, regardless of the degree of saturation of the market, your podcast is probably going to do well. That, and it's no secret that I think that if you structure your podcast with an intention to gain business instead of an intention to gain audience alone, you're probably going to be seeing much more success. More soon. Take a look at these clips. Okay. 161 is probably done there. LinkedIn notifications. Great, someone wants to meet, folks. And you know why they want to meet? They want to meet because of some material I put out earlier this week that they commented on. So content effing works. So 161 is a wrap. Now we're gonna go into 162, which is podcast ROI. Alrighty. Welcome back to the 4 a.m. report, folks. And if you've been following along with this series, you know that we're tackling the business casing of a podcast, particularly if your podcast is either something that's on the mandate from a boss, founder, previously delayed agenda, whatever it might be, or if you are trying to convince a boss about it who's not quite seeing it yet, right? So with that in mind, in the last 3 episodes, we covered off how to sort of amplify your content marketing. We covered in episode 159 how to consolidate into larger bodies of work. And then in episode 161, we covered how to deal with the issue of there are so many podcasts, why should we be making another, or your own concerns about the podcast market is oversaturated and how do I deal with that. Today is all about ROI. And if I might be sort of whimsical for a second, we like a good soundbite around here. We like a good naming sort of trend and a way in which we can commit things to our own memory. So about, I want to say 2.5 years ago, we created a model that we sort of internally call the domino effect. So sometimes when you listen to a podcast or when you look at your own podcast ratings, you not ratings, but numbers, you tend to feel a little stressed out. Like if you look at purely downloads, which I think is a highly like outdated, sad old metric. Like the reason that we're still measuring podcasts in metrics has nothing to do with quality and innovation. It has to do with the fact that the podcast platforms really don't have any other metrics to give you. They can give you listens and they can give you downloads, and the listens are also flawed. So downloads is really the only absolute metric at this point, but that's a little archaic. That's a little questionable. So when you look at, like, I don't know, 20 or 50 or 200 or 500 or whatever your stage of business is, that on the downloads versus what you're getting on other platforms, it's easy to feel like stressed out. So the domino effect is about, think of it like dominoes. You knock over one piece and then from there comes a series of connected things that happen. That can include things like this. It can include current clients hearing from you and sort of like wanting to work with you on different scope. It can include doc social, like people don't comment at all, they don't seem to have seen what you've done, but eventually like somebody will come into your client roster and you're like, how do you hear about us? And they will tell you it's somebody who's not at all active on your social front. So that's dark social, folks. And then it can also go into recommendations and affiliates, and there's a whole domino. So listen to the clips over here about how it is that you should measure podcasting based on actual dollars in the bank and equity created as opposed to downloads and listens. All right, I think that's a wrap. We've got 2. I feel like that's enough for the moment. So here's the last thing you should know. As soon as I have recorded an episode, I will usually put my hair up. Bye.